fair treatment of all those who came before the court, and
whereas Judge Cox continually demonstrated her passion for the welfare of the community, especially its most vulnerable populations, and particularly juveniles, and in her role promoted compassion, accountability, and well-being for those who came before her court, serving to make a positive impact on the lives of countless individuals and the community at large, and
whereas Judge Cox displayed a deep respect for our democratic institutions and systems of governance by personifying exceptional dignity and respect for her office and operating the court with distinction, independence, transparency, and virtue. And
whereas the Village of Oregon is immensely grateful for the public service of Judge Cox, her incredible leadership, commitment to justice, and for the positive and lasting impact she will leave on the community of Oregon.
Now therefore, the Village of Oregon, the Village Board of the Village of Oregon, Wisconsin does hereby recognize Judge Beth Cox for extraordinary public service to the Village of Oregon and the innumerable positive contributions she made in the lives of individuals and the community of Oregon.
So now I'm going to put on my other hat as a state representative, and one of the most fun things that I've gotten to do as a state representative is legislative citations, where we get to acknowledge the great work that somebody has done for their community. And I think Beth is a perfect example of somebody deserving of this recognition for everything that she has done to help the most vulnerable, to keep our community safe, and to also look to the future and what our community might need. And since I just gave the speech, do you want to read? Do you want to take the time to read it? I will say Senator Hesselbein and Representative Mike Baer, who, since Beth lives in the town of Oregon, are her actual representatives, send their regrets, but they are also
Well, I'm State Senator Mark Spreitzer, and just want to add to what Representative Jacobson said. Having also served in local government, I know that local government is very rewarding, but also very demanding, and it's such important work, and for you to have given your time to this community for so many years as municipal judge is just greatly appreciated, and so thank you, and I will read what we have here for you. A citation of commendation by the Wisconsin Legislature. Whereas Beth L. Cox has served our community with dedication and distinction for 16 years as municipal judge for the Village and Town of Oregon, and whereas as a trained social worker and attorney, Beth ran for office to provide more support and service to children in our community. And whereas during Beth's tenure as municipal judge, she has been recognized across the state for her work to create a parent liaison specialist, implement a peer court, and form a team with the school district and police department to address truancy. And whereas Beth and her team also improved the functions of the court, including implementing a new information system to monitor each aspect of court operation, collecting uncollected fines, and working with the village prosecutor to develop standard policies and fines for many offenses. And whereas Beth L. Cox has dedicated her career to helping others, serving our community, and addressing local needs, therefore, Representatives Jenna Jacobson and Mike Baer and Senators Mark Spreitzer and Diane Hesselbein, on behalf of the Wisconsin Legislature, do hereby commend and congratulate Beth L. Cox on her retirement and thank her for her exceptional contributions to our community. Dated this 20th day of March, 2023.
take a picture first, Beth and
Candy's gonna have a picture, so.
Oh, I
think she'd like all of us.
Where do you want us to sit? In front of the flags?
There you go.
Arlene is the one who's
Go right in the middle.
Come on,
Right here.
Right
Right
want
here.
me, Carly.
Right there.
She knows what I speak.
Are we?
I hate to be the legislature imposing on the village board, but we've got all of our village board members but one over here, so we can spread some folks out. Don't worry, the senator doesn't bite, I promise.
We know him.
All right, 1, 2. Listen.
Thanks for everything. I have a whole lot of thank yous that I would like to give. The reading of the village proclamation, I have to say, almost left me speechless, almost, but I have a million thank yous. First of all, to the larger audience of the people who elected and supported me for 16 years. I had the best gig in town. Because those of you who know me know that I was accountable to nobody except the voters, and I said and did what I felt was best. And nobody gets that opportunity too often. I want to thank the school district. We have in Oregon the most incredible group of people that I have ever seen. I've worked with the school district now 16 years over many different people. And I can say without exception that the dedication of those people, after hours, 6 o'clock at night, out of their own pockets, from their hearts, caring for the kids of this district, is unmeasured. So, and I've had a lot of jobs in my life. And this was the one that I held the longest, actually. But that school board, those school people are incredible. And we're lucky to have them. And that's been consistent, especially with I have to say, with Dr. Bergstrom's leadership over the last several years, it's even been, I think, a stronger community presence. And they do one hell of a job on an individual basis. I want to thank the village board and previous boards for being supportive of the court in good times and bad times. Anytime I had to come to the board to ask for something, I got it. And the board and the court had a respectful, I think mutually respectful relationship. And that's not typical. It's not to be taken for granted across the state, I can tell you that. But I enjoyed consistently with this board and prior ones, and with Martin and with Mike prior, wonderful support when things went bad and when things went good. I also think the village is very lucky to have each of you because I've been around a bit, and you all may have different approaches to public policy, but you all are incredibly good and honest people who may have a difference of opinion about how to get to a place and the timing of when you're going to get to a place. But the village is really lucky to have you all on the board and serving because you all care deeply, you're all incredibly honest and hardworking. And again, that isn't, unfortunately, it's not as routine as I'd like to see it. So you all are like that. And over the years, that's been my experience. And finally, the police department. This is such a lucky town because the police department, particularly under Chief Pagankoff, they have a tremendously difficult job. And they do it well. The officers who have come into my court to testify have always been professional and educated, they know what they're doing, and my experience has been they've done it incredibly well, and we've been blessed in the court with a great relationship with the school district, the PD, the police department, and the board. And that has been a wonderful thing, and the only reason that we've been able to do as much as we can. And finally, it's a team over at the court. Carrie Hecox essentially runs the place. She's incredible. People love her, and I've known her for over 20 years. And Cynthia DiCamilli, the board was gracious enough and generous enough to fund her position when she retired from the school district. So we're the only municipal court in the state that can help parents, which is what we try to do. And I think you're going to be in very good hands with the new judge who is running unopposed, and so I'm assuming she's going to be elected April 4th. Sherry's going to do a great job. So I thank you. Many thanks to many people. So thank you, and thank you for this. This was very special, and I will always keep these. And tonight, thank you.
We have this for you.
Thank you.
I grew those in my garden. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, we will continue. We're on to 4B, public comment. This part of the agenda allows members of the public to provide information to the report, including items both on and off the agenda. I do have, is Dale still here? Dale, you wanted to say something? If you give us your name, Dale, and your address, we would appreciate that.
Yes. My name is Dale Furrer, F-U-R-R-E-R. I've been a resident of Oregon for 30 years. I live at 693 Windward Way here in Oregon. The reason that I'm here is because I was a little surprised when I received my bill for my registration of my vehicles, and my bill had doubled. And part of that was a wheel tax that was enacted for Dane County, $28, and $40 was a wheel tax enacted for the first time by Oregon. So I know most people just go on with life and say they can't fight City Hall, and I guess unfortunately I've never been one of those people. So there was a phone number, and I called the number. I got a nice lady here in the building, and asked her what that was for. She couldn't say specifically, but she indicated that that there was a budget deficit, and it was decided that we needed a wheel tax to help with some budgeting issues. Now, I can appreciate that. We've all seen prices of things go through the roof. But as an individual who's now retired, my wife and I, we're living off our savings. And so when something like this comes along, it's just a little hard to swallow. I guess one of the questions, and I asked her this question, is this a one-time wheel tax to make up for a budget deficit, which she didn't know, but she indicated at the meeting here this evening, and so that's why I'm here. So I guess my first question, if you are able to take questions, is this wheel tax, is this something that's going to be a one-time deal, or you plan to have it going forward indefinitely?
Well, Q&A is a little difficult during the public comment period, and this item isn't specifically on the agenda, but there is an opportunity to ask clarifying questions, but it's not, we're not here to take action or do anything specific on this issue. So I think there can be some clarifying questions. And then I think the board, one of the things that we do when there's a feeling that there's a need to address something further is put it on a future agenda, further discussion about what you might do. Maybe you would, for example, decide, hey, we should have some conversation about how to communicate more clearly with the public about this or provide information or what have you. So, so there can be limited clarification questions from the board, but it's not really it's not a public hearing and it's not a back and forth kind of opportunity.
I understand. This is the first time for myself being here. I didn't really know what to expect. I guess I was a little surprised that there was no public notification, at least that I saw of any kind, indicating that this was even something that was being considered by the village board. I mean, had I known in advance that this was something that was being considered, I definitely would have attended meetings and voiced my concern about it, because I think this is something that's best done by including it in a budget and not putting it into something like a wheel tax, which is a very regressive tax, because it doesn't make a difference whether you're making $10,000 a year or $100,000 a year. You still got to pay the same amount. So, and I again realize we're talking about $40 a vehicle. This isn't big money, but for me, it's the principle of it. I used to live in Illinois, years ago. They do this all the time down there. Whenever they decide that they want to generate some more money, they come up with another tax just to throw on a resident. I just don't think it's fair. I've loved my time here in Oregon, but I think this is something that, in my opinion, we got to make known to the community at large and allow for a time for the community at large to come down and discuss it.
So I'd just like to let you know that we did discuss it at length, and one of the things that I would make a suggestion about is that this really comes down to shared revenue with the state government and the lack of shared revenue, which is something that the governor and the state legislature are talking a lot about. Not that you shouldn't come here. Totally you should come here, and we should put it on a future agenda, but I would just say, you know what, write a letter and say, and here's your representative, so that she has it in her file, right? And say, we need a better system of shared revenue because X wheel tax and streetlight fee, by the way, are on my bill, and I'm having to pay them, and you folks could fix this.
Yeah, again, I think myself, like a lot of individuals, don't understand how all of this is run and done. Your point is well taken. I guess I would just love to see that, if we're gonna, because I asked what's the $40 for, and I didn't get an answer specifically, like it's earmarked for this one thing or this one thing. So it seems like it's just going into a slush fund that's going to be used. Why not just budget better and put it in our taxes? I mean, our taxes are already high here in town, but I guess I'd rather just, if it was in there, that's taxes, you have to pay it. As opposed to putting it as a separate item as a wheel tax.
Sir, if you're comfortable with it, would you be willing to leave your information so that someone from staff could contact you, maybe, sometime in the future or whatnot?
Yeah,
to
sure.
Talk through some of those details. We're not.
Yeah,
do that
yeah,
at this
yeah,
point, but
yeah, yeah.
if you have valid questions,
Yeah.
although they were discussed,
Yeah.
previously, of course, the person who's supposed to do all those answers, but we certainly can do this too.
Yeah, and again, my expectation coming here, I really didn't know what to expect, so thank you for listening. I can't imagine I'm the only person in town that feels this way. But again, a lot of times people just, they don't feel comfortable coming to a meeting. And so my guess is there are a lot of others that feel the same way. But I'll leave you that information. I'll leave it with Trustee Below. So thank you.
Dale, thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Any Anybody else? See none, okay. Go to 5, which is approval of vouchers in the amount of $151,170.13. A motion and a second, they're on the table. Amanda, I see you, and Jenna. All right, anybody have questions on any of the vouchers? Okay, Candy, let's take a voice vote.
Van Campen,
Aye.
Belo,
Yes.
Jacobson,
Yes.
Wunsch,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
Glish,
Yes.
and Beschen.
Okay. We'll put a 6 into the consent agenda, and that's A through D. I can get a motion in a second, Carleen and Jenna. All right, anybody any questions or anything otherwise? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. All right. Moving along, we're down to the reports of committees. Items are for discussion, possible action. 7A is the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee. 1 is presentation of proposed diversity, equity, and inclusion statement and strategic directions. And just tell us, tell us who you are.
Hi, I'm Lori Anderson. I serve on the DEI committee.
And I'm Dan Dick, also serving on the DEI committee.
Yeah, I forgot my phone at the statement. Thank you. All right, so we are here to, thank you, present the statement. Let's see. All right, so I'll just go ahead and read it. The Village of Oregon Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee, DEI, exists to cultivate, promote, and preserve a culture that honors and values the collective sum of our individual differences, life experiences, knowledge, innovation, self-expression, and gifts. The DEI makes recommendations to the Village Board that fulfills this purpose and supports our vision. We envision a community that welcomes and respects the unique contributions that each individual brings from their culture, ethnicity, race, sex, gender identity and expression, nation of origin, age, languages spoken, veteran status, immigration status, color, religion, disability, education, perspectives, sexual orientation, and beliefs. We draw upon the work of the Annie E. Casey Foundation 2020 to define diversity, equity, and inclusion. Diversity is defined as the entire range of human differences that includes, but is not limited to, race, ethnicity, gender, gender identity and expression, sexual orientation, age, socioeconomic status, religious affiliation, and national origin. The concept of equity is synonymous with fairness and justice. It is helpful to think of equity as not simply a desired state of affairs or a lofty value. To be achieved and sustained, equity needs to be thought of as a structural and systemic concept. Inclusion puts the concept of diversity into action by creating an environment of involvement, respect, and connection. More than simple diversity and numerical representation, inclusion involves authentic and empowered participation and a true sense of belonging. Strategic directives. 1, to work with the Village of Oregon Board, village staff, and community members to make full inclusion and respect of diversity central to the identity of our community. 2, to provide resources that raise awareness, educate, train, and equip community leaders to model diversity, inclusion, and equity. 3, to continuously monitor, review, and evaluate diversity, inclusion, and equity, and to make appropriate recommendations to the Village of Oregon Board for improvement and ongoing development. All right, and recommendation. The Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee recommends that the Village of Oregon Board adopt the above statement as the official policy statement for their work on behalf of the whole community.
as we gathered to do the work and to figure things out, the question was raised as to whether there was a statement or policy for our work in general, but for the village, and thought it was important for us as a part of our identity, or part of our sense of community to have this statement. And so we drafted this for ourselves, looked at it, thought, well, this is pretty good. And we wanted to bring it and see if we could have the entire board adopt this as the kind of policy statement for diversity, equity, and inclusion for the Village of Oregon.
I was part of developing it, so I think that if there are any questions or suggestions or anything from board members, now would be the time to ask the three of us who are here representing.
I don't have a question so much as I'm really happy to see this and see like some, a real purpose for the committee, something that we have needed in this community for a while, and I'm just really excited to have this now.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Is the language about perspectives, does that include, is political viewpoints considered part of our diversity? And what we're aiming for, and including different viewpoints on our committees?
We did not specifically name politics. I would assume that when we get into talking about cultural and different types of status, that we would talk, that would be included. But we did not determine to put political perspectives specifically in there.
But the intention is to be as broad and open so that people feel that they get heard.
Anybody else?
Do you think it should be added? That was true.
I don't know, I was asking if that perspectives in your view already included that.
In my view, it's included already, and I would prefer to leave politics out personally. Because I feel like it's an inclusive enough statement that everybody should feel like their voice will be heard.
Anybody else, or we want to make a motion to accept the committee's recommendation? So moved. Bill, Mike, any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
I want to add one more thing.
Yeah.
Just want to let folks know that we've had a vacancy for a while from one of the students who was not able to be on the committee with the other commitments as a senior in high school, just a little too much. And then another person who has recently stepped down from the committee. So we do have 2 openings, and we are looking for more folks. We've had a couple of people express interest, and I think after the election, we'll probably be looking at reviewing those. So if you know anybody who might be interested in joining our committee, that would be great. Also, I just want to also say that the Sustainability Committee and the Transportation Committee have both put out surveys. We are not doing that. Not because I don't think it's important, but because as part of the diversity, equity, and inclusion training with Nehemiah, they are putting out a survey that I think, from their experience, will be a much better survey than us trying to develop one from scratch, and will give us the kind of information that we need. So just wanted folks to know those things. And thanks you all for coming. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay. All right, we go to 7B, which is Oregon Area Fire EMS Commission. One is minutes from the March 2nd, 2023. That's in our packet, informational only. B2 is appointment of alternate member to the Oregon Area Fire EMS District Station Planning Committee. We had a little I know you had an idea.
Yeah, I have just a couple of thoughts on this. I've actually, given the number of meetings I've missed throughout my time on the board here, I'm pretty comfortable in kicking this can down the road just slightly. I guess what I'd probably rather see us do tonight is just have the appointment procedure nailed down and come up with names at a future board meeting. That's kind of my thought on this. There's no intention of missing any of these meetings anytime soon. So if we want to do either have the village president appoint someone, come back with ideas ourselves, or however we wanted to do that, I would see that probably being okay. I don't think the fire district is in a great big hurry to have the secondary appointment made anytime real soon. So, and I guess on that note, for an appointment procedure, I would probably refer to like the rest of the committees and say we probably have the village president appoint someone and through board confirmation. It's just my opinion, but I'll have some more discussion about it.
Phil?
I was just going to say, there's certainly no urgency. A couple of the towns were, it was important to them to have an alternate, so we're really just following suit here. It's not as though it's a requirement for that meeting, but I think it's a good idea. I think Derek, like you said, will be there, but it's a good idea to have a backup, but there's no urgency.
Yeah, Amanda?
I'm just curious, because we want someone who's going to kind of speak on behalf of the village board. Is the alternate expected to attend as many meetings also, so they're up to speed on what's going on with the committee? I mean, what kind of requirements do we want from the alternate?
I don't know the answer. Jen, you?
I don't have the answer to that. I just have, kind of to that point, I was thinking, you know, if there goes to most of the meetings he has been, right? And, so then have an alternate who only has to step in on occasion, who would be the most knowledgeable on what is going on throughout that process that can really step in easily to that role, should it be needed? And I immediately went to a staff member because they've, you know, frequently in contact with the district, so that's kind of where my brain went. Not that I'm trying to sign y'all up for another meeting, but just because who would bring, who would have that knowledge at the ready, should they have to step in, you know, on short notice. That's what my first one.
Yeah, Phil. Certainly is no requirement that the alternate attend the meeting. I think the intent was if there's an interest of the alternate attending, they could. But if someone needed to fill in case Derek could go, if they were to go and then fill in Derek, I would think that to be added.
All right, so should we, what should we do, Mike?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion that we defer this to the incoming village president to make an appointment and approve it as a board as part of the committee appointments.
Okay, second? Janet? Okay. Any other discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. All right, then we're on to, looks like we're on to 7C, Plan Commission, Resolution number 2306, resolution conditionally approving Greenview Reserve final plat. Plan Commission's recommendation is to approve as presented. Lisa, I don't know if you can say anything.
Just thanks to Derek for helping us put together this resolution. You all have seen this kind of through the steps here, and we've made some just minor changes the team has to the final plat, mostly just delineating stormwater areas from park areas, so those are on their own outlots. There are a couple of conditions. There's a few areas, some vacations of right-of-way for Mary Hill Drive, as well as a vacation of an outlot, a former parkland that was dedicated for Mary Hill Edition, which will be, rather than that parkland being elsewhere in the development, it'll just be paid in a fee in lieu of, and then the parkland dedication will be the parks as you've seen them on the plans. But those conditions are outlined here. There's a plan to get those wrapped up within the next probably month or so. Not sure, Verdian team, if there's anything else you wanted to add, any changes to the final plat, otherwise we can answer questions if there are any.
No changes. We're sticking to the plan.
Sticking
We're excited to
along,
get
yep.
started. That's it.
Just a lot of detail work going on behind the scenes, and just several of your agenda items coming up later. We'll deal with that also. So just getting through the last pieces of the puzzle here.
Here's a suggestion, just take all of those items
Yeah,
in a
can we
row.
take them all out?
Yeah.
So it's-
Not all at once, but just in a row.
Oh, okay.
Not A, B, and C, along with this one.
Approvals,
Okay.
yep.
So, Mike, motion?
Yeah, just out of curiosity, where was Outlot 6?
So it was, at the end of Mary Hill Drive, Jeff can maybe point it out on the
Yeah.
screen. It's its own parcel. If you look on Access Dane right now, it's kind of a trapezoid parcel there. It was actually over dedicated for Mary Hill. So when Jim Lease was developing Mary Hill, he dedicated some land for those lots as well as the plan for future lots. Those future lots, I guess that was Mary Hill 6th edition.
5th edition.
5th edition.
Yep.
But the ones off Stoddard Drive that were.
If you're,
Yeah,
Mike, if
planned
you're
everywhere.
familiar, Richards Road is right down here.
Mhm.
And then this is Mary Hill Drive comes up, and right now it just kind of ends with these lots here. Outlot 6
Kind of a dashed in
is,
area
yeah,
there.
kind of a dashed in area that went along here. And so
Yeah.
I'm just kind of tracing it out.
So it'll be partially now park, stormwater, some lots, some road, kind of cuts across the section there. So there'll still be a park in that general area.
So that's not currently up against any residential units or anything like that?
There's a residential home right against here at lot 162 of Mary Hill 5. But yes, this will now be a residential lot right next to it. And then it'll still have this green space behind it, which is stormwater and conveyance through there.
I believe, Dan, there's a little path kind of behind, between that lot
Correct.
there and kind of accessing that park.
Yeah, that
so.
outlot will have a path along the western side of it up to the roadway to the north. Yeah, right through there, where
Mhm.
Jeff's pointing.
So they'll still back up to some green space there.
Thank you.
Yep. And just for, while we're here, the right-of-way, undedication, what are we calling that?
Vacation.
Vacation
Discontinuance.
discontinuance
Yes.
is this little piece right here that is adjacent to that park area. And this is where the previous developer had planned that the roadway would be. And that obviously is not matching up with their design.
All right, so let's take the 7C first, and that's the recommend approve as presented. Let's take care of that one first, and then we'll jump down to 9. Can I get a motion in a second? Amanda and Carleen, okay, any other discussion? on this one? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, then let's jump down to, take care of 9A, B, and C. Master agreement to undertake development, Greenview Preserve, Greenview Preserve LLC. Staff recommendation, motion again to approve. Elise, you
Matt kind of worked on this one, so I'll ask him to maybe present a little bit here.
Okay. Just starting big picture, so whenever we do a subdivision or a development of this type, the village enters into an agreement like this with the developer. One of the purposes of this agreement is to govern the development and construction of the public improvements that will serve all of the people living in this development, the streets, the water, the sewer, all of those public improvements. So this agreement addresses addresses issues relating to that. And that's kind of the biggest thing that this agreement does. There are a couple of other things going on, or at least one other thing of note going on with this agreement that I will mention. And that is that in this case, the developer has requested the opportunity to actually build out the improvements within parks on a phase-by-phase basis if they choose to do so. And so this agreement includes a process that would allow for that, that would be a need for the village to approve what those plans would be before that could happen, so that the way that the agreement is structured, what's expected is that the developer would present proposed plans for park improvements to the village. And if those plans are approved, the developer would have the opportunity to build those public improvements, do so in accordance with public bidding laws, and then there would be a reduction later against the impact fees, park improvement impact fees that would otherwise be paid. That would be based on the actual cost of constructing those park improvements. So I've seen that done in some other cases. I don't recall whether we've done that specifically here in Oregon before, and we certainly did spend some time working with the developer on, delineating, exactly how that's going to work here. And so I'm satisfied from a legal standpoint that we have a workable structure. And again, the village board will ultimately have the authority to decide whether the proposed improvements are what you want to see. And so that's going on in this agreement as well, and it's a little different than the typical thing. A couple other things to mention. So this is a master agreement to cover all construction phases of development. The developer proposes to move forward in phases. You'll see another item on the agenda tonight is the agreement for just phase one. And so these individual phase agreements are relatively short, just a couple of pages long, and they delineate the precise contours of that phase and allow the developer to move forward with that phase. So this master agreement will apply to each development phase, and each time the developer moves forward with another phase, they'll need to come back and get approval for what that phase looks like, what it consists of, and an agreement for that phase. One other thing I'll mention is that Jeff, thank you, he read the agreement and caught a couple of other very small little type issues today. That I had an outlining that got out of whack in the document that Jeff noted that led to some internal references of section numbers that were not correct. So there were no substantive changes made. I just fixed the outlining, and that meant that where that refers to section E2, it's now correct, but G is now an E. So we had an outlining issue right above where Jeff is pointing to. That got corrected this afternoon, and so I think it's perfect now. I think if we had another month, we still wouldn't find any more changes. No, we wouldn't. My goodness, it seems like it's very hard to get these things just right, but I think we're pretty darn, I feel good about it at this point with Jeff's last minute review. So I'll stop there and see if there are any questions.
Okay. Is there a motion for the master agreement? Second. And any other discussion?
Yeah, I just want to acknowledge that some of the neighbors and the planning commission members had some concerns about where the park was going to be along East Richards, and also the transition from existing North Perry into the new street. And some of the neighbors were concerned about the transitory nature of the housing that was going to be abutting their neighborhood. And Gooding was willing to work with the planning commission and police to make something that I think was a good resolution for everyone. I just went too long.
Thank you. Okay, got a motion to second for approval. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. All right, let's go to B, 9B, agreement for subdivision improvements. Phase one, the preserve.
This is that phase one agreement I mentioned. It defines what phase one would consist of, and would allow for that phase to move forward. Again, Jeff caught an inconsistency between what that agreement said about time of completion.
I was
and
on
what the
fire
master
today.
agreement said.
I was on fire today, that's what I was saying.
He was doing some fantastic.
Two right things in a row, I can't believe it.
And so we took out the reference to time of construction in the phase one agreement. That's fully addressed in the master development agreement, and so we no longer have that issue. So the agreements in your packet, I would say, are appropriate for approval with just those changes that I mentioned.
Okay, can we get a motion in a second? Carleen, thank you, Jenna. Any other discussion on this? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, and then the last one is C, resolution number 2307, resolution authorizing the vacation and conveyance of outlot 6 of the plat of the 5th edition to Mary Hill edition.
Yeah, so you heard a little bit already about the park, Lot 6, having been dedicated previously for park use. The design proposed here required vacating that park to accommodate the new design. What you're being presented with tonight does a couple of things. One, there's an agreement as part of this that requires that the developer compensate the village for the loss of the parkland so that funds can be used to acquire new parkland to replace it. Essentially, the developer worked with Jeff to calculate, what that amount should be so that we end up at the end of the day with Mary Hill, the earlier editions of Mary Hill and this new plat, we end up overall with a combination of land and money to buy land that fully meets the village's requirements for parkland. So there is an agreement that addresses that. And basically what the agreement provides for in terms of timing is that that payment would need to be made before the first building permit is issued for this development. So that's one of the things that's happening with this resolution is that agreement is approved. And then the other thing that is happening is that the village attorney would be authorized to file an action in Dane County Circuit Court seeking court approval to vacate the existing park. And that's the legal process we need to go through to do this. And that's it.
Any questions? All right, get a motion in a second. Motion off Amanda and Mike. Okay, any other discussion? All right, seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? You're all set.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your time and efforts.
Thank you.
All right, if we can go back to 7C, number 2, where we left off. Art installation landscaping site plan, the southeast corner of Gainesville Street and Park Street. Jeff, maybe you want to...
Yeah, so this is something that's kind of been in the works for a while. And that corner right at where Park Street and Janesville Street, kind of that inside corner there, right across the creek from the newly opened and cooking fresh today Culver's, is an 18-foot Tin Man type replica with on a foundation surrounded by stamped concrete and benches for a seating area along there. This went through Plan Commission and was approved or recommended for approval from them. Open any kind of questions. You can see the foundation design, working with a local artist who's building this out of stainless steel, so we won't rust or need to be painted. And working with Searle Electric on the lighting for that and how that'll be lit. I don't think it'll be the twinkle lights like we see here, but it'll look nice. Structural engineers have done all the design on it, and yeah, kind of a little gateway entrance piece.
If there's no questions, we'll entertain the motion. Amanda, Carleen, any discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, very good. We can go to 8, which is unfinished business items, are for discussion, possible action. 8A is the water utility rate study and rate case application. And Martin had a nice memo in the paper. Or Lauren did? Okay.
Yeah. And Lauren is out ill today, So I'll be filling in for this. She's done a really nice job of recapping this, so hopefully people have read this. As you remember at our March 6th meeting, excuse me, the rate study for the water rate that went to the PSC was discussed pretty long, and it was a good discussion, I really think. And there's some very good questions that came up out of that, specifically in kind of how much is accounted for in each water use group, how much was accounted for in the irrigation-only meters, and some options for different rate structures. I won't go into all the detail, but I think from the analysis, and I read through this today as well, from the analysis, it really seems that we're still heading down the right path. I think and it's always difficult when you have somebody who's like Ellers is here, Lauren was here, who spent a lot of time looking at things, and it's always hard when you start, okay, well, we have questions, what if we did this, and I think that's really good to be able to kind of go back and take a look at this, and it's always reassuring when it comes up to make it look like, yes, we're going down the right path. I'd open it up to any kind of questions that you might have. I will try to answer to the best of my ability, but without Ellers or Lauren here tonight. But I think it's pretty self-explanatory. I still think, and I support Lauren's direction and process with this, especially where we will be having an increasing rate for the irrigation usage. I've been out walking around a lot, and I see irrigation systems. There's nothing wrong with irrigation systems, but it makes sense that those that use more of our water and more of our system would pay more over time. So, any questions?
Yeah, just one. Page 56, it says that basically the village and other staff recommend continuing to bill residential water usage on the same declining rate block structure as other customers to avoid significant administrative cost and time increases associated with utility billing. Why would switching to a straight rate for residential increase administrative costs?
Great question. Unless it is something, the only thing I could think of there, Mike, would be if it is something that we're breaking out specifically as a specific tariff for a certain group of individuals. Right now, we charge like our almost all of our accounts are under a single tariff, which makes you don't have to account for them separately. That'd be my only guess, but I could ask Lauren that.
Yeah, Ryan.
I'm curious about the irrigation use for homes that are already constructed. I know in new construction and in some homes that have already been constructed, there is irrigation use monitored,
Right.
But what about for existing homes that may want to do that? Is that
Absolutely. So yeah, so that's an option for any home to do it. It really just involves hiring a plumber to be able to come in, break off a line that is before the primary meter, and just run that out to either a hose bib or something like that. I mean, typically it goes out to a hose bib and then possibly to a underground sprinkler system. But I know, in fact, I was just talking to one of my friends the other day, and he said, "Oh, I have a second meter," and I was all of a sudden pretty jealous because he had an older home just like me, and he said he's had it for years and years. So, but you then are paying the meter charge, but you're not being charged for the sewer. That's really where the cost comes in, is for every gallon that you are using under water, we're assuming that it's a gallon of wastewater that's going to the plant, since we don't meter the wastewater. So that's really where the savings comes in having an irrigation-only meter.
So that would be one way that people could do it.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
And I just want to say one more thing. I appreciate the extra work to find these things out because, I mean, I left really frustrated.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I appreciate the extra effort. Thank you.
Right, thank you. I'll let Lauren know. She's probably home watching. Everybody say hi, Lauren, and get well.
All right, anybody else? One tells me we don't need any action on this. Derek?
Just one last thing to kind of jump off of our public comment period earlier, the bail, that we need to do probably a better job communicating this with the public than we did with the wheel tax, since we have several months until this is going to be implemented. Now would be the time, and if we can, and I emailed with Martin a little bit about this, but there's programs available to the public. It gets the classes at the senior center, and just a little bit of public outreach so people know where to find assistance if they need it.
Yeah.
And I think, Martin, you mentioned last time in the memo too, that we're gonna put it in the envelope, so people have that information.
Yeah, Lauren did a good job of summarizing a couple of things, a couple options that we have, so that getting that out there, including the senior center with case managers and the library where a lot of residents are. But yeah, as I mentioned last time, as Lauren mentioned, the memo, we're going to be going away from the postcard utility billing to a full page, which will give us the opportunity to put information in those bills moving forward. There, as part of the rate process, there is at least one public hearing that the GSC holds for the public to attend to give input on. So when that gets scheduled, we'll get that information out there as well.
Candy, do we have these links on our water utility website, do you know? The ones for the programs for assistance and everything?
I do believe they are, but if you're not, we can sure get them.
Yeah, that's what I think. I mean, can point people to those directions.
Okay. All right. We can move on, I guess, to 8B, virtual and hybrid village board meeting policy.
Yeah, so I can just do a quick background. So if you remember, we talked a little bit about this early last year, before. So right now, we have the ability to do all in-person or all virtual meetings. We don't have the technological ability to do a hybrid meeting, or some are here and some are not. But with the move to the new village hall, which is coming quickly, we'll have the technology to be able to do that. Right, Jeff?
Yes.
Yes, and so with that will come some discussion on meeting policy and what the board wants to authorize in terms of actually making that a possibility, and then if there's any rules or procedures for conduct of the board in that regard. We do have an interim policy in place right now which talks about the ability for us to do all in person or all virtual. So we would want to update that to allow for the hybrid possibility. And Matt is here too. He can talk about some of his experiences that he's had in other communities. And if there's any questions or direction that you want to give us.
I can offer a few observations, both about what I'm seeing in other communities and about policy changes that would be needed if you want to change how you're doing things. So I've seen basically three different things happening, three different kind of models that I see. One is what we see here, and which has been basically in person now for quite some time. And my own sense is that in person is the best way to meet. You have better discussions and better meetings. That's at least my impression. I have another community, City of Stoughton, that I work with that has hybrid meetings. And there are some members, elected officials, who take advantage of those, and I think it's important that they have the ability to take advantage of them. A couple of folks who have health-related reasons for wanting to meet still from home. And the hybrid opportunity has given them that opportunity. And so even though hybrids are not as good as all in person, that's still been beneficial, I think, for some of those folks. The other thing that I think is worth considering is public participation. So here, the public has the opportunity to watch the meeting, because I think it's live streamed. But would not have the ability to participate, for example, from a remote location in terms of public comment or public hearings. And there are, my view is that that opportunity creates additional opportunities for public participation that wouldn't otherwise be available. I do have another community that I've been working with for a long time that, you know, once they started moving, or once they switched to virtual, they stayed virtual, and they have just now recently, like within the last month, started going back to in-person meetings. And they were all virtual, they were not hybrid. And people were getting uncomfortable with that. With, you know, why are we still just meeting, why aren't we meeting in person? And so they are now transitioning back to in-person. I don't think they don't have the technology to do hybrid, and I don't know what they're gonna do going forward. I'm not sure what they're gonna do. And those are, so that's 3 examples that I've had a lot of experience with here in Dane County. I think if you get outside of Dane County, my impression is, but, you know, for the most part, people are meeting in person. There really is not a lot of virtual and hybrid meeting activity at the local government level, by and large. I mean, but that's just based on anecdotal information. I haven't done a survey. I might be off on that, but that's just my impression of what's happening around the state. Last, from a policy standpoint, if there's an interest in making hybrid meetings available, then, you know, what Stoughton is doing is it's just up to the individual trustees or alders to decide whether they're going to attend in person or not. And they have that opportunity under their policy. They can, and they don't need a reason, they don't need permission, that's just the way the policy is drafted. And it seems to be working. I think my impression is the people who are, maybe not in all cases, but, you know, it doesn't seem that it's being abused or misused, as far as I can tell. So if you decide to allow for hybrid meetings, there would be a need to adjust to modify your current policy to authorize that. Wouldn't take a lot of work, but it would take a little work to make those changes to your policy so that you have the policy that allows for that. And as Martin said, you apparently will have the technology to make that happen or possible. It's just a question of whether you want to authorize that. That's all I have.
Questions? Mike?
So are we looking at a motion to authorize hybrid meetings?
Or to authorize us to make those policy changes to bring them back for you to take a look at.
So moved.
Okay, second. Yeah. Any discussion here? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, since we're doing a motion and everything, I'd like just to offer some feedback up front, so it has the opportunity to possibly get incorporated. But on our current policy, there's a few little things that I see that I don't particularly care for. On 4C, where it says shall maintain audio access throughout in regards to the members, the village board members. I'd like to see video added on there as well. It helps to see the person who's speaking if they're on there, so that's just one thing. One small little thing, the definitions on this one were down at the bottom. I'd like to see that up in the top because I understood as I was reading it what meant what, but
You thought you did until you got to the bottom.
When I got to the bottom, it just provided some confirmation. It'd just be nice to know that, I guess, at the top. On number 7, I would take some issue with the forced disconnections. I don't think it's necessarily a great move to disconnect someone from a meeting. I can see meeting them if they're attending in a virtual space, but disconnections would be akin to escorting someone out of the meeting room. So, at least in my mind.
The intent there, and we can fine tune the language. The intent there is not to allow for disconnection of someone unless that's required because there's like a physical connection problem that's disrupting the meeting. Maybe there's a bunch of static or something that's happening and now nobody can hear or something like that. So the intent there is, if it's necessary because there's some technical problem that is interfering with the meeting, that we can put a stop to that. But we'll have to work on the language.
Sure, clarification of language.
Yeah.
Number 8, is there a designee to be kind of assigned that task? Because as I look at these meetings, I think Candy is pretty busy with the minutes. The village president is trying to organize things here or there. And I guess I want a little clarification of who's going to be taking charge of that.
Right. So the way that I anticipate that should work, and we'll have to make sure the technology allows for this, is that the person who's chairing the meeting, the village president, just as the village president recognizes people who are here in person, would do that for people who are participating virtually. But what that means is they have to have a screen in front of them that allows them to see everyone, so they've got to monitor both screen and the room. And this is what happens in Stoughton. And it goes generally okay, but.
I guess one of my last concerns is something you kind of touched on as far as members being present, and that I think should probably be incentivized either through a carrot or stick method. I know the school district, back when they were doing their virtual meetings, if I remember correctly, you could miss, a board member could miss up to 2, but then had to be voted into the meeting by their colleague. I don't know if the board would want to consider something like that, but I do think it's important for people to actually be here for these conversations, much to Matt's point earlier. And I don't really necessarily see a carrot method that would kind of facilitate that, but there might be a stick method out there that works. So.
So I guess my comment was more of, there's multiple ways to have a hybrid meeting, so I feel like this is geared towards a traditional Zoom meeting, and I think that maybe that's something we should explore before we develop a policy, because I know, like for Dane County, they use a Zoom webinar where people can't just mute on you and participate in a conversation like you can in a traditional Zoom meeting, and so I think understanding what the technology is out there and what we want to go with would then determine what we want in our policy. And so I think that we need to do that stuff as well.
Yeah, my comments were sort of along the same lines, that this policy was developed before Zoom had, really become much more sophisticated in the kinds of interactions that can happen. Like raising your hand, that was not a feature when we first started. You just had to interrupt somebody. So I agree with Jenna's comment, and just feel like we need to know what the options are that are available to us for these kinds of hybrid meetings. I'm in a lot of hybrid meetings, and presenters, board members might be the presenters in a webinar, and other people might be and I do agree that that in-person meetings feel like we actually have more authentic conversations, but there are circumstances when people can't be here, or I'm gone. I want to be in the meeting, or at least know what's going on.
Phil?
Clarification, Derek, you said something about 2 meetings, or?
Yeah, what would happen is you'd have the ability to miss 2 meetings, but participate virtually 2 meetings. But if you wanted to participate virtually after that, your colleagues would have to vote you into the meeting.
Well, I wrote down the same exact thing, Derek.
But
Can I, yeah, so let me interject a little bit because this is kind of new, just as much as this was new territory back in 2020. For all of us, it's new territory for us looking at how we're going to deal with a hybrid environment. What we have been working with our AV consultant on is a very flexible arrangement that can accommodate many different video sources, many different audio sources, et cetera. That's one platform, and I'm very confident that we have that in place. The next thing is the software. And from what I've been doing research on, it looks like it's Zoom, but more than just the baby Zoom, you know, that you get normally. And you want to be able to have, obviously, the control to be able to bring people on and off at will, and be able to have kind of almost a different level of, say, a board member who's in the meeting versus someone who is just trying to call in on a video call as an observer. Just as much as if someone comes into the room, they have a right to sit there and listen and everything like that. They have a right to comment at certain times, but they may not have the right to comment on that item if it's not a public comment period, or if it's meant just for board discussion. So I'm looking into that software, and I agree. I think this is going to be, that's why we're kind of leaving, excuse me, a little more time to kind of test the system out and really get an understanding for it. But the idea behind it really is, in those situations, if we do have another pandemic, then it's in place, or if there's a board member that is out for a while, whether for traveling, medical reasons, or whatever, they should still be able to get into the meeting, video, audio, be able to speak and everything like that in an effective manner. So we're going to be working those bugs out, and it might take a little while. I just know that the one time we tried to do the hybrid meeting here, our solution was to stick a microphone inside a set of headphones. That's how we got the audio. We're making an improvement on that. We just got a better set of headphones this time around. But no, I think yes, we're working towards that, but I would just ask for your patience as we work together on this to kind of see what kind of system we end up with, and how we can accommodate it, because and it might take a few little iterations to get there.
Carlene or Derek has anything?
Yeah, just one of my other notes that I missed on here. On the current virtual policy, it has on there a 30-minute delay. Just being cognizant of staff time and the fact that we have a village attorney here and all that kind of things. I'd like to see if for whatever reason the technology isn't working at the meeting, if we can't get it working within 15 minutes of when the start of that meeting is supposed to take place, I'd like to see the meeting proceed in the in-person format. I don't know how that would get worded in there to make that possible, but
That's not really possible because of the open meeting law. If we tell the public, you know, this meeting is going to be accessible in more than one way, including remote access, and then someone attempts to participate that way and it's not working, we say, well, forget about that, we're just going to go ahead anyway, that would be a legal problem.
so I guess my question would be, how do we, I hate to say it, but almost certain of that, because if we have a major computer issue at Village Hall, do we then table the entire meeting for next week, or how do we?
Yes, that's what you do.
Good.
All right, Carlene?
Yes, I was just Googling while we were talking about this, and Zoom does have stuff for local government.
Right, exactly.
I just wonder if Zoom has, worked with enough local governments that they have some policies.
Yeah,
That's what they use in Stoughton, and
Yeah.
it works pretty well. I think that the idea of giving you guys a chance to see and experience one of these, and do it during a meeting when one of the things that is happening, at least at some point, is that there is material that's being presented to you and to the people who are on Zoom, so you can see how that works. So for example, you're in a meeting, It's a hybrid meeting, so you got people here, you got people remote access. And someone's giving a presentation that everyone needs to be able to see. So you can just experience like, well, gee, how does that go? And then that might help you decide, you know, how you feel about it. Could we do that, Jeff?
Yeah, I mean, we will be, we will be doing, I mean, Candy and I have already talked extensively about, we need to get this in place. Well, first of all, we need to get the hardware installed and everything, the microphones, the TVs, everything like that. And that's still a few weeks out. And then secondly is we need to get the platform on there, the software platform. And then that's where we're gonna probably spend a ton of time working out and testing and demoing and setting up fake meetings and all that kind of stuff to really make sure it works. So I mean, we'll bring that before you probably in the next 2 months, I would think, you know, as soon as we can get moved in over there.
So my comment wasn't about using Zoom for government, it was about maybe they have some suggestions for policy kinds of things based on their experience. So I assume you said Zoom already with that.
Yeah, Zoom is the platform we're considering it. I've talked to a few individuals on our computer consultant. Our computer consultant had recommended Teams, which comes free with our Microsoft Windows. I've not been very pleased with Teams, and I don't believe it to be near as smooth. And I hate to say free is you get what you pay for.
Well, and I was just gonna say, sometimes the best way to figure this out is maybe Jeff and I should call Stoughton and just see, you know, like what their, how they operate. And sometimes that kind of helps work out some issues that we haven't thought about. And
You could watch one of their, you could actually zoom in on one of their meetings and see what it's like remote. They meet on the second and fourth Tuesdays at 7 p.m. It's not, well, I don't know actually, but you can zoom in and see what that experience is like. The Zoom link is on their agenda, that's on their website.
that might be something
Yeah.
to find out more.
Yeah. Phil and then Amanda? Well, I would just say, looking out for future village presidents. This sounds like I may be managing a meeting rather than participating in a meeting, and that is a real concern.
Yeah, I didn't envision that, actually.
Talk to Mayor Swagley and see what he has, because he's had to do that.
Okay.
And see what he says.
Thank you.
Yeah. We always envisioned actually it would be managed back at the OCA media area. But we'll be looking at other options for that as well, whether that would even be myself or Elise or Martin.
You can't have two people chairing the meeting, you know?
Right,
You gotta have one.
right.
Like,
But I was, well, that time we were in court, remember when you were trying to bail me out, remember? No, when we were, it was for that raise order. And there were witnesses that were, remember, that were coming in from Waukesha or something, and the clerk, the court clerk, actually was the one controlling who was coming up and who wasn't. You were too busy worrying about being the master prosecutor.
Yeah, but that's very different than when you
Right.
have a meeting with debate and you have to decide, you know, people have their hands up and who's gonna get recognized next and next.
Right, right.
So, yeah, Amanda.
Okay, so
And then
now I
Elise.
have more things to say. No, first, just addressing this topic, you can have like co-hosts of a meeting, and you could have someone managing the order and just have the village president calling on the people in the order, because when you do a raise hand on Zoom, it does it in order for you at the top of the screen. It's very easy. It's easier virtually than it is in person sometimes, so that's, and we could have somebody else helping with that, if that becomes an issue. That was my point. The other one is, to Derek and Phil's point about, requiring trustees to be in attendance for so much. I am reluctant, to do that, just because there are so many things that can come up that are out of our control. You know, I'm thinking like when my mom had surgery and I was gone for a month to take care of her, you know. I don't know if I missed one meeting or two. I tried really hard to be here, but you know, if that had been extended at all, then it just feels like 2 meetings is pretty small. I think we're all responsible adults, and that we take this job seriously, and if at all possible, we're here in person. You know, I don't see the need for it, but we could always put something in the policy maybe where, you know, trustees are expected to be attending in person, you know, whenever possible. And if we notice that a trustee has gone for months at a time, and it doesn't seem to be for a legitimate reason, like caring for a sick family member, or, you know, if they're just on a long-term vacation or something, well, then we could say something. We could always modify the policy, or, you know, say like we have the right to say, look, you gotta be here and participate. This isn't acceptable. I don't know how we word something like that, but.
Well, you hit the nail on the head when you said if it's not working, you modify the policy. But I mean, I have a situation where I have an older person who is elderly and I think is concerned about not getting sick and is not ready to come back yet. And so, you know, I don't know, not everybody might view that the same way, but I'm sympathetic to that.
Yeah, kind of on that note, you know, in my time on the board, I have had 2 fellow trustees pass away due to cancer, and I asked myself how much more would they have participated, should they have been able to, had we, you know, that was way before the pandemic, but had they been able to have a hybrid option. I also think about if somebody is recently, you know, if we don't maybe have that issue right now, but if somebody's recently given birth, they might be able to participate from home while they're healing from that versus requiring them to come in after somebody, or if they're on bed rest or anything like that. And so then to me it kind of boils down to, you know, although I appreciate wanting to try and regulate that, that also requires us to dig into a trustee's personal, whatever they've got, personal life, their personal situation, and asking them to air out those things when I think, you know, if we have somebody who is not able to come to the meetings for whatever reason that is, ultimately the voters will decide if they think that they are doing the job that they were elected to do in that community.
Yeah, Bill?
If we were to incorporate the term "not able" into the policy, that's absolutely fine. That is, they can attend unless they're not able to. I had to touch on some good reasons. You did as well. But, you know, my fear is someone gets elected and never shows up ever. And that might sound far-fetched, but then the minute you try and change the policy, now we're being sued for discriminating against somebody that doesn't want to come to the village office. And we gotta deal with that. I think that, you know, the nature of this is that we build relationships by being here in person. We have good build relations with staff. We have good discussions during the meeting. I think if someone is not here, we're not gonna have those types of discussions. We can agree to disagree. But I think a lot of times after a meeting, sometimes we have tensions, and those are released after the meeting, and we just talk a little bit. All those things will be missing if people just decide not to come anymore, or take several months off. I just don't think it's healthy, and I am really concerned.
So, just let me say, it seems like there's lots of suggestions, lots of questions yet. So, I think there's a motion in a second for the policy. I mean, should we just wait? I mean, there's lots of things that have to be answered.
So the motion that I heard, maybe I misunderstood, was just to authorize the staff to begin working on the policy.
That would be
Working.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see no issue with authorizing the staff to work on this. We'll have a much better discussion when we actually have a draft policy.
Okay. Eric?
Yeah, I mean, Amanda and Jenna, you both raised really good points, and to Phil's point, just adding the non-legal, that is definitely something that I do share his concerns about. Like you said, just not showing up, and yes, you can come over to the voter at the end of the day, but I think Phil raised some excellent points as well. I find that given the state of the policies that we go through on the board, policy, once these policies are done, they're usually done. I mean, it takes a lot to bring a policy back for review after the fact, which is why I kind of think being upfront and getting some wording in place to address it might be the better way to go.
Okay, so there's a motion and a second.
Clarification. So, the motion is for the staff to begin writing a policy.
That would allow for hybrid meetings is how I interpret it.
Right, but are any of our comments being incorporated in that, and if so, which of those comments?
I've kept track of most of the comments.
Okay, but clearly we don't all agree, so there'll be some points in there where you can say, these are the areas you need to nail down at the next time.
I think the best that I could do is try and put some notes in the margin where, you know, there was discussion about this, here's how either I have addressed it or I've not addressed it.
Yeah.
I'll give you a good example. You know, if we're trying, if I'm thinking about how do I draft a policy that says, you are required to attend in person unless you are unable to do so, in which case you may appear through Zoom. What does that mean? What are the implications of that? How do we enforce this question of whether you're able to be there or not? So I have to think about that. I might propose something else to try and address that concern, but I don't know what that is yet. So.
Okay, thanks for the
Maybe the staff will consider and interpret the discussion in draft.
Yeah, I also wonder one more thing of if the village board president or the village administrator needs to know in advance that you're not attending and you'll be attending virtually.
That's an easy thing to do,
Yeah,
is to
I
say
mean,
require advance notification. But then, as soon as I say it's easy, it's not easy. Because what if you don't get advance notification and you show up, well, oh, now you're not really here for quorum purposes. You can watch, but we're not gonna let you talk. What does that really mean?
Right.
So everything is harder than you think it is.
That's it.
What if you got a note from your mother?
Yeah.
Okay. Everything, really.
It is harder than you think it's.
All right, so there's a motion and a second. You guys will have lots more discussion, I'm sure. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right, so we are,
D, 9D.
resolution number 2308, 2022 budget amendment. Number one, to account for year-end adjustments. Lisa, is that you, or is that Martin, or who's up on this one?
Well, it's kind of a joint effort. I put it together and then Martin did the memo.
Okay.
I don't know if anybody has any questions about it. This is an annual thing that we do. We do adjustments at the end of the year to kind of true up our different categories within the general fund to make sure that we are not over budget in each area, and truing up the Public Works Department, because when we create the budgets, we do the best guess estimate we can do with how the year is going to play out, but things change. We could have some more snow, so then
Equipment breakdown, all that kind of stuff, yeah.
we just adjust the budget at the end of the year then to reflect what actually happened during the year.
All right, so we'll make a motion. Amanda, okay. Second? Okay. Any other discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. All right, 9E, proposal to close Village Hall for moving to new location between April 17th to the 21st. And scheduling May village board meetings for May 8th and May 22nd at the new village. What's wrong? So, take a motion?
Move to approve.
Derek, any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. 9F, future agenda items. This item gives the board members opportunity to place new items for new business on a future agenda for discussion. Anybody? Okay.
Wait, Derek has.
Derek, you got one? Okay.
Yeah, I guess I'd like to possibly address Dale's concerns at the next meeting, depending on if everyone else is on board with that. We went ahead and passed this fuel tax. I know we didn't have an end date or a sunset on it. I don't know if that's something we want to visit or maybe have further discussion on. But that's just kind of my thoughts for the future agenda and talk about it a little bit more.
Okay. Anybody else?
So that, just to clarify, is that like a, well, it's not like a public hearing, but it'd be like a, just an out, I mean, are we gonna advertise it or let people know about it? I mean, are we just gonna kind of clarify for people, you know, people watching at home and anybody here, like, why, I mean, I guess I'm trying to figure out how do we put that on there? Is that something for action or for just discussion?
I was just looking for a general discussion, I wasn't necessarily looking for action on it.
Okay, that's fine.
Discussion? Okay. All right. Okay, let's go to 10 then. Report of village officer, village administrator, the report was in our packet for you. 10B, the finance. I should ask, anybody have any questions for Mark? Go on. Not seeing any. 10B, finance director report, cash and investments, building permits issued, impact fees, connection fee collections. We've seen this periodically. Anybody have any questions for Lisa? Assuming it's.
Yes.
Okay, not seeing any. 10C is Senior Center Director Report. 2022 Oregon Area Senior Center Annual Report was in our packet. Anybody have any questions for our Senior Center Director? Rachel? Yeah.
I just wanted to say thank you for including that. It's very interesting.
Yeah.
I think as we move forward with new senior center plans and thinking about this, we should be taking out some spreads in the observer so that, you know, that what's actually happening in the limited space that's there is somehow highlighted so people understand really the need for more. And because this is, visuals speak 1,000 words, and this is really well done in terms of really catching the eye.
You want to say that? Go ahead, Rachel.
I was just going to say, first of all, thank you to the board for the support that you guys have been in a very steadfast fashion throughout the last year and previous years to the Senior Center. It's much appreciated. This is our opportunity to kind of pull together some of the statistics that we think the public might be interested in, and we put it out in a 4-page, you know, so they can pick it up and read it, not like you guys get it on your computer screen. There's a lot of information in here. I think I was thinking of the Transportation Committee when I put this number about the number of rides provided sort of in the middle. But I'd also like to just point out the last page is mostly snapshots, as this is our 2022 snapshot. And there's a lot of pictures on that page that are fun. We've got a little thing there. Jeff's got it right in the middle of the page there. We still run into the fact that people often think that we're the same thing as the nursing home. And so one of our staff came up with the idea of creating window clings that say, Oregon Area Senior Center, I don't live there, I party there. So you might see some of those around town. We're selling those in our gift shop. So.
Did you want me to zoom in on this?
Oh,
or-
yes, I'm singing to our volunteers. Some years they pay me not to sing, but it didn't work out that way last year, so I had to sing to them.
With a hairnet.
Yeah, it was a kitchen song.
Okay.
I have an apron too, you'll notice. But I will say, you know, what you're seeing on this last page, it says, come join the fun. And while we want people to realize that there's a lot of fun to be had at the senior center, a lot of what's not in these pictures is the stuff that's not so much fun and that we are providing to people and that are represented by the statistics on the inside. So there's really two sides to the senior center. There's the fun that people have there, and then there's the necessary support that we provide. And we were, you know, touching on that this evening, talking about helping people make sure they can pay their water bills. So you guys have been very supportive of both sides of the center. You've got all kinds of statistics. If you ever want to understand them better, send me an email, give me a call. Same for the public. If you'd like to understand the senior center better, stop in and pick up one of the annual reports. And if you've got questions, don't hesitate to ask.
I like Jenna's idea too, of putting something in the paper, or was that Carlene? Sorry, Carlene. Sorry, it was Carlene. It was money lady.
Carlene
But no, it's a good thing, like those folded over sheets. You know, if people aren't aware of what the senior center does already, having those at the senior center for pickup doesn't get them to the audience. So, I mean, I'm wondering how much it would cost to put something like that in every issue of the Oregon Observer or something. Yeah, like an insert, you know. Just something to consider, like, it's a lot of money. I don't know. What'd you say? Is it a lot?
It's a lot of money. Mhm.
All right.
I love the idea, but yeah, it's costly.
We are working on some publicity that maybe isn't written, but you'll be seeing a bit more eventually.
Okay. All right, thank you. Thank you, Rachel. All right, 10D, Village Department Head, staff, consultant,
I have some.
All right, Chief.
I just wanted to talk with the village board about something that's come up. In light of some recent events, and I'm going to talk about this vaguely, I did want to discuss with the village board, and I think it's stating the obvious, but I'll just put it out there again. The work completed by my staff, to include my officers, is done solely at my discretion. I take responsibility for what they're doing. I ask that if you have questions or concerns regarding what they're doing, please contact me versus approaching them directly while they're out working in the community. While it may not be intended, trustees approaching employees directly could be perceived to employees as undermining my role as the department head or police chief. And just as important, it makes our employees feel uncomfortable at times. Last week during a staff meeting, after these events had occurred, I reminded my staff that they are to treat all individuals who we come into contact with equally, regardless if they hold a political position in the village. My intent with covering that reminder was not to address any concerns I have with my staff treating everyone equally, but reminding them that they have my full support even when in contact with those that may oversee the police department or myself. Staff was also told by me that if a trustee or community member directly approaches them with questions about the work they're doing, the officer has been directed to have that committee member or trustee contact me with those questions or concerns so that they can go about doing their business, getting the work done that they are asked to do. And I offer this, and I think all of you know I have an open door policy, and I'm always happy to answer questions. But if you need my email address or phone number, I'm happy to provide it to you again. That's all I have. Thank you.
Anybody else? Yeah? No. Okay. All right, 10E is village board comments. Anybody have anything tonight? Okay, seeing any. We'll go to 11, announcements, miscellaneous business. 11A was upcoming meetings, that was in our packet. Dates, all right, yeah.
something to add. The DEI committee would normally be on the first Thursday of the month, but the first Thursday of the month is Maundy Thursday, and Dan Dick, who is a pastor at 369 Methodist Church, had an obligation, so we have moved that meeting to March 30th. Also a Thursday, still at People's United Methodist Church in Carside.
All right,
Clarice, you can come.
All right, we're on, yeah.
Just real
Yeah.
quick, transportation committee is still number crunching. And one of the people helping us do that is from Greater Madison, and PO is out of town on vacation until mid-April. So transportation committee probably will not meet till later in April, so just to give everybody a quick update.
Okay. All right, we're on to 12, which is closed session business. Pursuant to Wisconsin statute 19.51C, considering employment, promotion, compensation, for performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the government body has jurisdiction or exercising responsibility. So I think we need a motion in a second. Yep, Jenna. Adjourn from closed session. We need a voice. Yep, voice vote.
All right, so Jacobson?
Yes.
Peterson?
Yes.
Van Campen?
Yes.
Peschel?
Yes.
Wunsch?
Yes.
Swift?
Yes.
And
Yes.